Empathy.com was created to help with loss-related tasks. Founder Ron Gura is with us today to talk about their mission and how the Empathy team can help with grief and loss needs. You're connected with the Heart of Hospice. I'm Jerry Finter, here with Helen Bauer.
Whether you're a family caregiver or an end-of-life professional, we're here to enhance your hospice experience by connecting you with information you can use about end-of-life care.
Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at GrandPad. Do you have an older family member who's isolated, or do you feel disconnected from a senior loved one who lives at a distance? The folks at GrandPad have come up with the perfect solution, an easy-to-use device that connects older adults with family and friends using video chat, email, photo sharing, and more. Visit grandpad.net for details. We were introduced to empathy by our friend Jennifer O'Brien.
Yes, author of the Hospice Doctor's Widow book.
Yes.
A wonderful advocate for caregivers and quality of care.
And what she had to say about empathy was she wished that empathy had been around when she went through her loss, because they have some of the most incredible services to provide to families. And we're discussing today with the founder of Empathy, Ron Gura, about how it got started, and we're talking about the services they provide, and it's just incredible what they're able to do. So tell us more about Ron Gura.
Ron Gura co-founded Empathy in July of 2020 and functions as their CEO. He was a senior vice president at WeWork. He served as entrepreneur in residence at Aleph, and he served as a product director and general manager at eBay as well. He's got a very rich business background. As Empathy's CEO, he helps to drive their mission. They believe that loss should be less of a burden for every family, less confusing, less inefficient, less expensive, and less emotional draining. And that's why they built Empathy, to meet families where the family is, put the control back in the family's hands, and then give them practical tools to help navigate the hardest time in their lives. And that's what he's going to be talking with us about today.
We hope that you learned a lot more about empathy, because they have some incredible services to provide, not only for families, but also for companies as well as for hospice agencies. So take a listen to our conversation with Ron Gura from Empathy. Ron, we're glad to have you on the Heart of Hospice podcast to talk about your company, Empathy. Welcome to the Heart of Hospice.
Well, thank you, Jerry, and good to be here today with you and Helen.
So we'd like to start with just an icebreaker question to get the conversation going. So here's what I'd like to set up as a scenario. You have someone that you know that's graduating from, let's say, high school or college, and you're going to give them a book as a gift. What book would you give them?
Well, probably one of my favorite one about happiness, less about career advice and, how to best interview or whatnot. I feel like in many cases that will link back to how to live a better life.
Very good. I like that.
I like that too.
Yeah, that's good. That's not always about career, but about happiness, because happiness is that's what we really are striving for.
Well, hopefully those two are not decoupled, and you can find meaning and purpose in your career as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we'd like to know more about Empathy. We have heard about what you're doing, but I'm not sure that all of our listeners have heard. So tell us just a brief overview of what Empathy provides.
Sure. So I'd say empathy is the friend you wish you had when you lose a loved one. It's a knowledgeable neighbor / friend, lawyer, accountant that can help you with the full range of needs when it comes to grief and estate burdens. What we do is we use our care team and that are supercharged by technology to make sure that we save time and money and stress for family members who are dealing with some of life's most challenging moments.
That's a good elevator speech right there.
Yeah, that's the elevator pitch. So what was the catalyst for starting Empathy? What moved you to get the business started?
Well, Helen, grief doesn't really skip any of us, unfortunately, and it sure didn't skip me either. I had my fair share of loss as a bereaved brother, as a friend, as a commander in the army, as a manager. But eventually I witnessed firsthand not only the emotional burdens of grief, but also the administrative and logistic that comes with it. And I thought this is really the single largest consumer sector that is still untouched by innovation. And in many ways, I'd say unspoiled by software. And we felt as a team that there is a really big opportunity here to take those two things, the logistics and the grief, and put them together, because I don't really think you can decouple the two. We believe that grief is made hard by logistics and logistics are made harder by grief. So what's really missing in the market is an holistic approach to look at the whole human being and solve for all the pain points that comes with loss. This is not going to be one of those 5-minute and you're gone, fast, easy workflows that a lot of today's digital transformation products have. There's nothing perky or fresh about it. It's about meaning, it's about purpose, it's about empowerment, it's about lessening the burden. It's always going to be hard, it's always going to be messy, it's always going to be human. But there is a very big opportunity in taking this big, messy life event and taking it one piece at a time to really help people re-engage with life in a meaningful way.
So if I can dig down for just a little bit, if someone has a loss, if they've experienced a loss, how can empathy provide help to them? What are some of the services that empathy can offer to someone who's just experienced a loss?
Sure. So quite a broad range of needs that comes with loss. And what we do is, firstly, we'll understand your specific case. And it differs between, 6 siblings or none, in a state in Arizona or New Jersey, Jewish or Muslim, and understanding that nobody wants to be an expert at this. This is something a lot of people really want to get over with. And they want to do it right. And they want to do it with hopefully leaving time to focus on the things that matter the most, like their family members, and less about paperwork. So for example, their VA benefits, their Social Security, the IRAs or pensions, their life insurance claims, writing an obituary, getting ready with the ceremony, the eulogy, the EIN, opening the bank account, closing bank accounts, deactivation of accounts, AT&T, Spotify, social media, 50 others, all the way to the messy, hairy areas of tax and probate. We're talking about more than 13 months median of work average. We're talking about more than 450 hours of work days, like work hours that needs to happen during the work day, that it has to happen like 9 to 5. So this is a big employer cost. It's a big financial cost. It's a big emotional cost. And it's really important for us to start looking into this taboo topic in the eye in order to understand it better as individuals and as a society.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of the time depends on how much preparation was done before the person's death. Did they have an advanced care plan? Did they have an estate plan? Did they let people know where all of the important papers could be found? So much that could have been done ahead of time, but might not have been. So I'm sure a lot of the amount of hours spent really is determined by how much preparation was done in advance. So you mentioned just a minute ago about it takes a lot on the employers as well. So how can employers partner with empathy to provide support for their employees?
So we're partnering with progressive employers and amazing Fortune 500 companies to support with bereavement care on top of time and pay. So what we do is we help employees save time and money and hopefully bring their whole self back to work when they're ready, and also help the colleagues and the managers understand that this family leave that just happened is unique. Very similar to what happened with parental and maternity leave in the last decade, if you think about it. I would say almost identical, because it's a life transition that is happening in my own intimate home, regardless to my employer, happens in my house, my family. Either a new baby comes in or a senior parent leaves us, but I now have an additional layer of needs, and I can't bring my whole self back to work right away. So not only I need time and pay to come through this, but I also need an employee experience that will actually be holistic and compassionate, to reiterate the fact that this employer is interested in a long-term relationship with me and showing up for me in, the twists and turns of life, and not just for the parties and the cocktails.
So in a way, it's really quite an investment for a business, for an employer, to partner with empathy to provide that kind of bereavement support. When you think about it, so I think it's something like $7 billion a year in the U.S. lost in productivity from grief and loss. And when an employer says, we're going to support you, not just give you leave as you need it, but then bereavement support, because empathy goes beyond just the administrative things, right? They have grief support, individual support. What an investment in an employee. Mm-hmm. What kind of company, like you're saying, a progressive company, would provide that kind of investment in an employee? That I would think that would have a huge impact on relationships between administrators and the people who work with them.
People don't easily forget what you did for them in situations like this. This would carry a lot of weight with the employee when it comes to loyalty, productivity, retention. And like any other employee benefit, yes, it should be an investment that we do in what for most companies is their biggest assets, their talent, and how to build productive and loyal workplace and just workforce that can stick around and build something meaningful together. At the same time, having said it's an investment doesn't mean there shouldn't be a good return on that investment when it comes to presenteeism, absenteeism, and productivity overall, because what those employees want to do is invest time in the important things, not necessarily, calling probate court from their cubicle. What they really want to do is focus on the things that matter most to them, and then when they can and when they're able, bring their whole staff back to work.
Right. That makes so much sense. Most average companies right now, and I use the word average in comparison to progressive, like the word that you used, the average company, the benefit they provide for their employees who have experienced a loss is 3 days. Mm-hmm. 3 days off of work that most companies will pay. And that's it. That's all they provide. So what empathy is able to offer is just amazing. That sounds really, really good. And I hope that more companies will take advantage of this opportunity, this benefit, and really go out and make that investment in their employees. That's good. So you also happen to partner with hospice and palliative care agencies at Empathy. Tell us about that.
So yeah, we do partner with hospice and palliative care. It's a very interesting vertical for us. And unlike many of our other kind of client verticals like life insurance and HR, this one has two touch points versus one. So we have both the admission and the discharge. These are two impactful opportunities to have a conversation with the family at the beginning about what to expect or what's going to happen. And how can we add additional layers of peace of mind from a comfort care, palliative care standpoint? And secondly, admission is after the fact. Clearly, loss just happened. And it's very contextual to understand you now need support in the days, weeks, and months when it comes to bereavement support, a topic that hospices are minded at, but not necessarily focused on. As you might know, and I've seen you cover this before on the podcast, bereavement care is a pretty wishy-washy part of CMS and Medicare.
This is true.
On one hand, it's very defined, like, hey, this needs to happen. It's, basic conduct. You need to have this in order to, reimburse hospices and understand this is regular business. But on the other hand, there's a very flexible term about what is bereavement care, who's certified to do it. These are not all licensed social workers. These are not all grief educators. And especially in terms of quality, the hospice has a lot of expenses. And where I met hospice professionals, I met a lot of good people with a lot of big heart and really a community of purpose. But as you also know, there's a massive shift from nonprofit to private equity in this space. And many of those companies are very acquisitive and growing quickly and, managing the nickel. And I think bereavement care is not getting much of the focus it should get. We're really a big part of the end of the funnel experience, where from a private equity standpoint, you see more and more focus on the top of funnel and generating new business. And this is actually an opportunity for both. You can be mission driven, do what's right for the family, and build a good business at the same time if you do it right.
So Empathy can offer services to hospice and palliative care agencies. How does that work? How do you partner with them? Does the hospice agency actually get in touch with you and let you know that they have maybe a new patient? How does that work?
So I'll give you an example. We work with several hospice chains in the US. A notable one would be Compassus, great partners of ours and a really thoughtful brand that show compassion in everything they're doing. And what they've done with Empathy is they purchased our premium enterprise plan for every single family that is going through Compassus, really sticking around in the days, weeks, and months way after the discharge. So from the moment you do admission and with Compassus, they tell you what to expect, what's going to happen, and they give you access to Empathy's anticipatory loss workflows, the things you can already start working on as a family that will save you time and headaches in the coming weeks and months. And after the fact, you have access to a 24/7 complimentary, all-inclusive concierge that is our care team, together with our award-winning app. That all comes for free if you're a Compassus family. And those touch points are between emails and phone calls and digital or physical touch points. We get to the customer. We understand that means different things for different people. And we make sure to meet them where they are, which is to some extent the essence of what empathy is, to put yourself in the other person's shoes. That also means choosing the right platform. If it's, a phone call, an iPad, an iPhone, mobile web, or just good old, SMS or a brochure, we find them where they are and we start empowering them by the day.
So if a hospice agency has patients that aren't particularly tech savvy, right? We serve a lot of rural patients that maybe don't have access to high-speed internet the way they would really need to. You actually have the ability, empathy actually has the ability to provide materials, resources that are hard paper, hard copy, that could actually be sent to the family.
We do that, but that's usually just as a touch point to get started. And then we'll adjust ourselves to the capabilities of that patient. What you described, someone with no internet access, is definitely exist in 2022, but very rare. And we don't need, high speed connectivity to provide support. If someone can't do video chat, we'll do phone. If someone can't, talk to us every day, they'll get the audio through the app, they'll get the activities, the programs, but far more than resources. It's really the difference between digital content to software engineering. It's a difference between a checklist that tells you here are 5 things you need to do versus the granularity of 1,500 items that needs to happen, but we're not overwhelm you with all of them at the same time and tell you this is how you do it and this is where you click if you want us to do it for you, which is really the beginning of how you leverage technology coupled with human compassion to save people time and stress during this very challenging time of their lives.
So it's really a service, like what you were saying, it flashes me back to the best friend you need when you have a loss. Not just somebody that says, here's what you need to do, but here's how we're going to help you to do it.
Right. There's a mix there. Think of us as a headspace for grief together with a TurboTax for estate administration. You kind of need both.
Yes.
You can't just do one of them because this is a country where the government says, you need to tell me about what happened. I need to understand all the assets, all the liabilities. We'll need to figure out liquidity. This is not just, one size fits all, not to mention, just taxes and probate, which is just a very large additional layer of burden that happens to a family just to understand how to tackle this for many of us for the very first time.
Yeah, it's very common, I think, for people to be in this space of grief and yet trying to tackle such difficult tasks.
Confusing.
And it's confusing and it gets overwhelming. And I think it just compounds the grief, to be honest.
Well, and if you're saying that typically companies only allow 3 days.
Right.
And Ron, you said it's an average of 450 hours?
Yeah.
And that's business hours during business days.
What can you do in 3 days?
Yeah.
Can you barely arrange a ceremony and not to mention attend it or like, this is not serious. Like, how can anyone bring their whole self back to work after losing someone meaningful? Not to mention being an executor, and we're talking about any layer of when we talk with employers. It's not the same crowd as hospice when most of the cases you lose a spouse or an adult parent. We're seeing a lot of silent birth. This week, we saw an increase in amount of cases looking for support with miscarriage. People sometimes can't go back to work immediately after losing their, best friend as a pet. Yeah. We're looking at different types of loss, but when it comes to losing a family member, wearing an executor hat as well, yes, in addition to the grief that has no timeline and no shape or form that you can really operationalize, you have all this paperwork, bureaucracy, and tedious tasks. Some of them, like you said, very difficult to perform. Others, quite simple, but challenging because of the emotional burden. Is it really challenging to call Amazon and say, I need to delete my spouse's name from the account? No. Would you do it? Hell no. It's tough. Like, the task itself might be straightforward, but people won't do it. And because they don't do it, they'll have additional layers of tasks to do, and then fees, and sometimes on other things, more paperwork will kind of pile up. So it gets really tricky if you don't have a companion that tells you, look, this is what needs to happen today, and this can wait.
Right, right. And to say, if you need me to do it for you, I'll be happy to do it for you.
Click here or call me. Yep, absolutely.
Right. That's awesome.
Today's episode is sponsored by the team at GrandPad. They recognize that older people can be intimidated by technology. GrandPad is created to be easy to set up and effortless to use. The device allows for email, games, music, and photo and video sharing. When you live at a distance from an older loved one, GrandPad is the perfect way to bring everyone together for the holidays. If you're looking for a holiday gift for someone who has it all, consider purchasing a GrandPad subscription. GrandPad comes with 4G LTE cellular service already included, so there's no need for Wi-Fi. Creating a family network is as simple as sending an email. The company has built a platform that empowers seniors of all ages and technological skills to safely connect with family, friends, and caregivers. No spam, no robocalls. As part of the private network, you can share your photos and see what other members of the network are sharing. My mom has a GrandPad, and she loves seeing photos of her grandkids and great-grandchildren. GrandPad can keep your family connected for the holidays and beyond. You can find more details at grandpad.net. Now back to today's episode.
You mentioned anticipatory grief earlier. How can empathy help with anticipatory grief?
Sure. So let's take hospice for an example, really the definition of anticipatory loss. We believe that grief starts when you lose that relationship, and let's say that parent became a dependent, still around, maybe even capable of doing some of the things, but you lost a father, not a family member. And now you're in charge as perhaps the most unappreciated title in the US, a caregiver, that you get to replace with even a less sexy title as an executor or a beneficiary. But caring doesn't stop, giving doesn't stop. You still have to mix those medical, accounting, legal decisions together with emotional, guilt, and love. And that mixing is really the tricky part. And when you have the same companion that tells you, this is what's going to happen in the next few weeks, this is how hospice works, this is what's good about hospice, this is what's challenging about it, this is how the system works, this is how you optimize for your returns, this is how you get help with cash flow, here are things you can do right now, here are things that will be really challenging for you to do in the first day after the loss, but you'll be expected to do them. And you might want to start thinking about them now. And here are a few layers of estate planning and documents and password management and power of attorney and whatnot that still not late to get them done in some of the cases. And there are a few that, if you haven't done them until now, probably not the best time to start a trust when you're at the hospice.
Right.
Keeping in mind that like 80% are not doing estate planning, and that's not going to change overnight. It's a very important layer of end of life. And yes, it will help a lot of people be more prepared, like you mentioned before, if they have everything they need. But the truth is, and you guys know this, Jerry, people don't do it because they're trying to avoid contemplating the inescapable truth of mortality. And the ones that have all the paperwork in place are usually in a different place in terms of their financials. High net worth individuals are surrounded by service providers that help them prepare for tax optimization and whatnot. But the vast majority of Americans don't have any estate planning. None. I'm not talking about a will or a trust or a guardianship document. I'm talking about nothing. Like, so when the inescapable happens, there's more work for the executor.
Right.
And they need more support.
Yeah, definitely. So if there is no estate plan, if there's no will, if someone hasn't done any of this preparation work ahead of time, what's going to be the survivor's biggest task? What's going to be their hardest task once the death has occurred?
Well, Jared, I wish there was one answer for that. Really depends on who you are.
Right.
But I would say for the family unit as a whole, I would say it's probably the funeral and probate will be the biggest two most expensive, most time-consuming tasks. One of them is kind of quick and expensive at the get-go. Another is long and tedious and also expensive. But claiming the benefits will be a third. It's another big topic that has a lot of variation between if the deceased was a veteran, which is very common these days because of the generation and the Vietnam War and the Korean War. We're talking about Social Security benefits, other ancillary benefits. There's just a lot of edge cases there. These would be the three big ones, but I would say there's like 40 others that, some people are having a really challenging time getting their obituary in place and representing just their thoughts and their loved ones. Others are having a massive hurdle with family tension. So there's really a broad range here, especially when you stop looking at the family unit and you look at the individual layer. So we see cases every day serving more than tens of thousands of families by now, where the brother would be listed as the executor, but it's actually the sister who's moving the needle on all of these tasks and pushing forward, making the phone calls, tackling. This is a very gender specific persona. I would say women are doing 75%. And this is something that needs to be fixed. This is a huge gap for employers when they think about, a diverse and inclusive workforce. It's something about, all of us to consider. How is it that, we allow, generally speaking, not individually, we allow for men to kind of throw money at the problem and say, I need to go back to work and I'm going to take a loan and we're going to fix this. While in most cases, women are actually doing the heavy lifting, calling all these vendors, arranging all the paperwork, sorting through the albums, and being more open about their grief as well. Again, generalizing. So back to your question, I see inside the same family unit, two personas. Usually you can profile them by gender, especially if you have two siblings or more. And you can see one of them is actually, using more of our sleep support tools and journaling and audio and kind of re-engaging with life day by day, usually by themselves, privately, without, sharing recipes with the family or writing stuff about that. While the other one, usually a female, would actually have like a checklist of things she's doing for the whole family and asking for the permission and proxies from others to do things, and gets into trouble and fights because miscommunication and tension, and people fight about money, they fight about the silver, they fight about memorabilia, they fight about all kind of stuff. Once the glue that once connected all of them, the parent, the uncle, is no longer there. And that's a really important part of estate administration and end of life, is managing the family tension and building a trusted companion and a trusted advisor that you basically, because empathy says we need to do this today. It's not the sister says so. Empathy says this part is actually time sensitive. The rest of it we can talk about next month.
Yeah, you have a really unique perspective, I think, as you look at the family and the family dynamics that are there. And wow, that I had never considered that before. And empathy, as kind of being a neutral subject, can come in and say, okay, here's the first things that you need to look at. Here's priority. The other things can wait. And it really gives some great guidance to the family. That way everybody's on the same page, and it's not the sister who's saying, like you're talking about, who says, we got to get this done. We got to get this done. And then, the brother feels like, well, she's just nagging. But instead, empathy can come as that neutral subject and say, here's what you need to do. Take care of this now. I like that.
And also the grief is very different. I feel like, we see a lot of judgment in, it's not unconditional as it should be, where people feel like, hey, why is that person feeling that their grief is larger than mine just because I'm able to get back to work, or just because I'm able to get stuff done with the estate lawyer? Doesn't mean I'm not heartbroken. It just means I'm able to do this one additional thing for the family. And sometimes people say, you know what, I can't handle any of this. Mm-hmm. I'm with myself right now, and that's fine too. But it's really a family unit. Our customer, our user, is not a bereaved next of kin. Our customer, our user unit, is a family. And we allow for them to tackle tasks together as one. And we're trying to add communication, add transparency, and reduce the toxic environment that comes with bereavement, the double-digit % in probate court that is really just family tension. And also just a lot of weird things that are happening in this predatory space, like 30% of all identity theft cases in the US, 30% are for deceased individuals.
Interesting.
And, just employer cost and financial cost. There's so much going on because this is a taboo topic. There's the second we start facing it like one, it's like sex education in the 50s. Doesn't matter, like, oh, we're not going to talk about it, everything's going to be fine. No, we actually should talk about it.
Right.
Most people don't want to talk about death. That's clear. It's in our chemistry. It's understandable. But when it happens, when the context is already there, you should have the resources, the technology, the services, the same layer of support, the same level of consumer grade products we get anywhere else. I'm sure you guys have right now in Texas at least 4 or 5 apps on your phone to get pizza delivered later tonight.
Right.
But nothing that can help you with this huge, massive burden that doesn't skip any of us.
Ron, it strikes me when you're talking about all the different administrative things that we have to do, and of course it's layered on top with grief. One of the things that we have to do that seems so challenging, at least in my experience for families, is writing an obituary. It's an administrative thing, right? You want to put it in the paper, or it needs to be put online for the funeral home. And maybe it's going to be offered somehow at the memorial service or the funeral, whatever service you have. So it's really an administrative task, but it's also extremely emotional. Does empathy help with writing obituaries, and how do they do that?
So first thing, this is a great example of why we don't think you can decouple any of these tasks, like just removing a name from a vendor account or writing an obituary, dealing with financials or emotions. They're all blended together. The reason you don't want to get the death certificate is because you don't want to certify anything. The reason you don't want to write the obituary is you can't believe it's true, but someone's telling you it's for today. You got to do it, and you got to pay for it too. You want 2 papers, 3 newspapers. What do you want to do? Like, you don't want to, like, as a side note, there's so many tips for, do's and don'ts with grief, and our chief empathy officer, David Kessler, you know him.
Yes.
Far more, I guess, suitable to give any advice on that. But if I have one tip I can give to our audience today, is never ask a bereaved what they want. Just do something. Don't say, what do you want for dinner? Say, I'm ordering a burger. What do you want on yours? That's it. And the obituary is a great example. And I'm glad you asked that. We recently released a tool on the obituary wizard. So if you go empathy.com right now, and you get our iOS or Android app, and within the same day, you'll get expertly written obituary for free. We collect all the critical information from you in a very simple to use, intuitive interface. And then if we're missing anything, we'll let you know. Our team of writers will get to it. They send you a draft. You give us comment. It's all free. So just as an example, you can do that in the free trial, which is usually, of course, right after the loss anyway. And a lot of people leverage this tool. It's one of our most loved features.
That is awesome, I have to say. And thank you for offering something through your website that's free. And I'm very grateful for that. And so we'll make sure that our audience knows about it. So how can our audience get more information about empathy?
Well, the easiest way is empathy.com, where we have not only our direct-to-consumer support for families, so families can get the app, get the service, talk to the care team, experience everything we're doing for free with a trial, and test it themselves, see if it's adding value for them, and only get the premium features if they want it later. And at the same time, we work with employers and insurers and hospice chains. So you might get an access code from your organization, and then you get premium upgrades as well. So definitely check with your life insurance company or employer if you have empathy already when you need. And that's the best way to of course learn about us. Additional resources on the website, even before you engage with the platform, would be our Cares Team Knowledge Hub. And there's a lot of resources talking about hundreds of expertly written articles from scratch with the empathy tone and voice. So that could be anything from how to tell the kids, or do I really need to go through probate, all the way to, how to write the perfect obituary. So all that and more, very straightforward and intuitive tone is just accessible for everyone on empathy.com.
That's amazing. Ron, we are so glad that you had this idea and that you were able to move forward with it, because this is going to be a great source of help and support for people who need it at a time when they really do need a friend who will come alongside and help them with those really difficult tasks after a death. So, Ron, thank you for doing this, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here and explain more about it.
Of course, Helen and Jerry, thank you for having me. And on a personal note, thank you for, putting a spotlight on what we believe is still a taboo topic and needs to be discussed. If it's what you do every day on the podcast, and thoughts about hospice and bereavement, all the way to thinking about innovations in the space that can add value to the heroes in the front line that are really doing the work. The funeral director, the life insurance agent, the chaplain, the bereavement coordinator, these are heroes that should be celebrated just as much as the caregivers we talked about are underappreciated. And I think we need to wake up and look at what's going on. There's a really unique generation right now that needs special care, has different expectations, and we're very humbled to be working on this purpose and just walking on this journey. And I feel like we're just getting started and there's a lot to do, but it's really eye-opening and heartwarming to see the support from the ecosystem. So thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for talking about end of life.
You know, empathy is that perfect blend of the business and the technology and the humanity, which is so hard to find, right? We're always talking about quality versus quantity, benefit versus burden, and how to blend in all of these things. And I think empathy really has taken that to heart when they put their services and products together.
They saw a need, and they were able to meet that need with the services that they provide. And it's incredible because it's a technology, but it's more than that. They put the personal touch, if we could put it that way, to technology. And that's a really incredible gift to be able to offer. So we're really recommending empathy and what they can provide for not only the individual, but also for the corporations.
Yes. So hospice agencies, they are happy to partner with hospice agencies, and through a new initiative they pushed out recently, Empathy partners with mid-size and smaller agencies. So you don't have to be one of the huge nonprofits providing in care in 25 different states. If you are a smaller agency, Empathy has packages that are appropriate for you. So if you are an employee, an administrator, a team member, an owner of a smaller, mid-size, and smaller hospice agency, Empathy has a package that you can partner with to provide really just this enriched, enhanced grief and bereavement support, estate care support for your patients and their families.
Yeah, and what a great benefit. I'm going to look at this from a business perspective for just a minute. If you want to set yourself apart, if you want to show that you are providing more than just the basics to your families, here's an opportunity to make that happen. And so we would encourage you to take a look at what they offer. You can find out more about their products and services at empathy.com. All of their information is there on their website. I would also encourage you to download their app. They have an app that is both Apple compatible as well as Android. So go to whatever app program that you have and download the app, empathy.com.
You can try out Empathy for free or request a demo by going online and getting in touch with them there. You can also read their blogs. They have a huge number of resources that are just available for free on the website itself.
Right. And speaking of free, Ron told us that they are also offering to do an obituary writing for free for those who come to their website. So please take advantage of this. If you're in that space where you need help with writing an obituary, they will help you do that for free because they have writers on staff that you just give them the information, the basic information. They will write the obituary for you. So our recommendation is that you take advantage of what's available on the empathy.com website. Maybe take advantage of the free trial. Try out all the aspects of their services. See what they have to offer on empathy.com.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of Hospice. I'm Helen Bauer here with Jerry Finter. Because we know your hospice journey is 24/7, you can always find us at theheartofhospice.com. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening, and please take a minute to leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts.
To connect with us, all you need to do is send us an email to host@theheartofhospice.com. And you can also find us on all the social media platforms. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.